Welcome to Second Take, the show that focuses on the issues behind the news. South Africa's Chamber of Mines says the fragmentation of junior mining in South Africa should be brought to an end through consolidation. Mining Weekly editor Martin Creamer attended the Junior Indaba this week and tells us more. Welcome, Martin.
Thanks, Shannon.
Now, what are the main opportunities for junior miners in the South African mining industry?
Well, South Africa got a fairly firm thumbs down at this Junior Miners Conference because in the past, when the private sector owned all the mineral rights, they didn't want any juniors because the big guys hogged that. When the state became custodian of all these mineral rights, they also had a narrative with the bigger mines because there were a lot of issues that needed to be sorted out. So the smaller companies and the juniors, as the world knows them, haven't got much of a show in South Africa. One of the majors, Anglo-American, has had a fund which is really trying to promote juniors. It's been fairly successful. It wants to do quite a bit more in the Northern Cape. It's looking at iron ore and manganese and dumps, because these can be advanced fairly quickly and it can give funds up to 30 million rand, to get things going, which is crucial because the banks don't want to touch these juniors. The banks will only come in at least at pre-feasibility study, but what they would like to do is come in at bankable stage. When you've proved that it's going to make a profit and it is bankable, then they want to come in. But before that, you need early stage finance, and this isn't really readily available, as we clearly heard at the Junior Mining Conference. And when a digital vote, which isn't really scientific, was taken, people said that South Africa wasn't really a great venue for this, and there were better destinations, which is a pity because we need that exploration. And you see that other countries are doing well and we're not.
Which destinations are shown to be more favourable?
Well, Botswana certainly got a firm thumbs up. Namibia didn't do too badly, and in later commentary, Mozambique came up quite well, although Portuguese language, you needed to either have people understanding it or you understand it, but and also the laws are a little bit hard to follow there. But on the other hand, the resources there are popping up, from gas to coal to rubies even and gold. So I think South Africa really needs to wake up. Even the cadastre side of it, where you can see who's got the mineral rights, it was found to be very opaque. And this is tragic because the cadastre that is being used all over the world was developed in South Africa, but the South Africans aren't using it. The Department of Mineral Resources developed another cadastre which nobody can follow. It's so difficult. Whereas they go into the cadastre at Mozambique or Namibia or these other countries, they know who's got the mineral rights, they know when they were awarded, they know what is still available. So really, we need to fall into line. It was quite embarrassing to listen to, some of the commentary.
Now, there have also been strong calls made for South Africa to introduce effective tax incentives. Can you elaborate on that?
People go into Toronto and they see these wonderful skyscrapers and they say, well, how did this all come about? And a lot of them say, well, look, exploration was incentivized and mining could then follow, because unless you do the exploration, you're not going to get the mines. And then, these resources riches led to these big buildings that you see here because they had what they call a flow-through scheme. That means that the tax incentives given to the explorer or the prospector or the junior miner, they flow through to even the small shareholder. So that shareholder gets a share in this exploration company and also gets a tax incentive to have that share because the incentive flows through from the junior miner, and it has worked beautifully in Canada, and it has largely been the main success for not only exploration in Canada but Africa on our doorstep. The Johannesburg Stock Exchange hasn't been able to attract the investor in the explorer because it's too high risk. Whereas South African companies have then gone to Toronto, listed there, and people have been all over them like a rash, because they've got assets in Africa. So you should have assets in Africa funded by Africa, but you've got assets in Africa funded by Canada, Australia, London. not Africa, because we haven't got that scheme. We haven't got the model, the flow-through model, where people are incentivized to actually invest in those companies. And we see now Australia is looking at the Canadian model. They've modified it slightly, but they've introduced something, and maps were flashed up at the Indaba, which showed that really Australia is quite well explored. But when you look at South Africa, the exploration level doesn't seem to be as clear. And I think that now that it's in the hands of the state, and the geoscientists are employed by the state and the custodian is the state, there seems to be a lack of sort of incisiveness about it. And apparently, geoscience is underfunded. So what these geoscientists do is they actually do exploration outside of South Africa so that they can fund their organization, which sounds absurd to me.
Is this flow-through model, is it something that could work for South Africa?
Well, several years back, the then Minister of Finance, Trevor Manuel, he promised one budget speech that he was seriously considering this flow-through scheme for South Africa, and he gave the impression that it would come through in the next budget. In the next budget, there was an indication that no, South Africa had something better, and it introduced a sort of a venture capital-related incentive, which was exposed as absolutely useless at this Indaba. But I think 3 people have taken it up, and none of them are involved with the exploration. So how that works, I don't know. They must have found some sort of different benefit in there. So it was absolutely pathetic. And we hope that the Davis Commission into Tax will now really look at it more soberly. In fact, they were quite resolved at the Indaba to say, let's form a collective now to go, and they even used the word intellectually, go to the Treasury and intellectually persuade them of the opportunity, because this is an opportunity, that they've just spurned. And to say that we got something better than Canada when nobody takes it up, I mean, it's absolutely laughable. But I think the government was belittled at this Indaba, and rightly so. And a lot of shenanigans are being exposed now. People are not keeping quiet anymore. And many of them said that, they don't like the way the Department of Mineral Resources is handling things. And some of them said, why must we be called to hotels to do interviews with them? Why don't we go into their building? Is it because they don't want to have the recordings there? And when we do get to the hotels, why do we have to take the batteries out of our cell phones? Things like that. So it really doesn't look good. It doesn't reflect to the credit of DMR. And they need to really take it seriously, because they're damaging South Africa as an investment destination, and people are not prepared to remain silent. And you've got tweets going out, you've got Facebook, you've really got to get your house in order, even if it is a perception. The world runs on perceptions. If there is this perception, it will damage our investment case. So hopefully, we'll see something better coming out of government. And there is a situation where, the organizers of this event have got a promise from the minister, who couldn't attend personally, but at least sent a delegate, that he will then take up all the issues that were raised in a one-on-one interview, at a later stage. So hopefully it will get through to him, because it's important.
And I suppose this is also one of the main reasons why junior explorers and junior miners need to join the Chamber of Mines, because then everyone can consolidate together.
Yes, the Chamber of Mines was very keen to come bring these juniors in. There was some issue in the chamber. Some people seem to believe that if you call someone a junior, you're belittling them. I don't think globally that is the issue.
This means they're smaller than.
So the
like
chamber was saying we'd like to refer to them as emerging miners. I don't think that's necessary. They say they've got an emerging miners desk now. They can help these emerging miners, and one hopes that they'll have a different membership fee, because I don't think some of these juniors can pay maybe the fee that these bigger ones. So there needs to be 2 tiers. And people were saying, you need these juniors in the chamber. And the president of the chamber, Mike Teki, was saying, look, our doors are open. We want you in. There is a situation with SAMDA, which is the small miner association that is out there. People are sort of questioning whether this really represents juniors. It seems to possibly more reflective of BEE investors. But what they're saying is that for this really to work, you need operators. You can't just have portfolio or shareholders. You know, it's a different sort of concept. And so they're looking for these juniors to come into the chamber and also to consolidate themselves more so that they can be a stronger entity in the chamber. Whether juniors who are very individualistic, a lot of them are, you know, geologists, they'll go out and live in a caravan and be quite happy under a tree somewhere. You know, it's probably going to be a different culture for them. They're not used to working like that, I think, throughout the world. So how it's going to all end up, I don't know. But South Africa needs to get going on this exploration because you can't have mines without exploration. So if you cut off the exploration side, there's going to be, you know, brownfields exploration. Big companies will do those brownfields around the mine because that's cheap. But are they actually going to go to the new frontiers? Probably not. And if you don't have that, then mining starts to die.
Well, thank you for your insight, Martin.
It's a great pleasure, Shannon.
That's it for today. Join us again next week for more news analysis on South Africa's mining industry.